So hello again, everyone. Welcome to this sixth talk. Today we have Anna Laganà with us that we met 10 years ago when she came to our second workshop. It was already a lot of time ago. We were really young.
And, all of us.
Yes, we look the same, I think. So it's
so
good.
Too.
So thank you very much for being here with us. And since then, Anna's life has changed a little. She has moved to the US, and we will talk about that in the next 40 minutes. So welcome, Anna. Can you tell us where you are right now? And can you work with this lockdown, or it's not possible?
Yes. Thanks, Marta. First of all, I would like to thank you very much, because I think when I heard about this initiative, I think it was wonderful for our community. You know, these are difficult times and some of us are isolated. We are at the 8 weeks of quarantine. Of course, we can go out and walk, but still, you know, you are pretty much by yourself with a lot of Zoom entering in your house for work, but still. So these things of, you know, having this, you know, these talks with this conversation with our people from the field every week, it just makes us in company. So thanks a lot for organizing it. And thanks to everybody to be here. When I've seen the number, I was like, oh my God, there's so many people interested in plastic.
Yeah.
So I'm a very lucky one, I have to say, because I'm reading, I mean, a lot of, you know, not good things for our field, you know, cut that has been done to budget. I feel lucky because I still can work, and actually my case is coming in a very good moment, because I did, you know, I'm alternating, you know, practical work, researching treatments, basically, and then generally I wrap up the research and try to disseminate the research through article, papers, or organizing workshop, etc. So I'm in a phase of writing what we have done in the last year, so 2 years, a lot of papers. So actually working from home is good, and we can do that now from the Getty. We are close and we are waiting to know when we are back, but it will be pretty much depend from what they were deciding in the city of LA. So far still we are in quarantine with a soft opening today, actually, yeah.
Okay. So this time we have a lot of questions, so I will start. Let's see if we can do it all. If not, maybe next time. So let's go back in time some years ago. You started working with contemporary art almost since the beginning, but why did you choose plastics? Was it when you moved to the Netherlands and met Thea? Hello, Thea.
No. Thea is there. No, actually, I met Thea because of plastics. That's how we start a bit. So I actually did my training in Italy at the ISCR in Rome, Istituto Centrale per il Restauro, Superiore per il Restauro, for the one who knows the name. And there when I started to study paintings, because this is how it was, you know, the old training, you know. But since 2 years, the last year was dedicating on modern contemporary art. And so within this year, at that time, 2 of my professors, one was a polymer scientist and one was a conservator, they had a brilliant idea to include plastics, make a little module on plastic. And at that time, they had also little reference, you know. The main book, the first book was Plastic Collecting and Conserving from Colin Williamson and Anita Quain, edited by them. They were all the specialists in that, but it was so little. But they managed to do such a nice course and to grab our attention as a student. So yeah, when I had to think which thesis I'm going to do, and I was so fascinated by this course in plastic, I just love it. And so I decided to do a thesis on plastic, and then I went to ICROM library to find, okay, what are the gaps in this discipline? And it was all a gap, you know, there's so much to do and to be researched. And then I read about TEA there. So that's why I start to read all the articles, about, the people that they were start to research, the scientists, Evan Osten, Brenda, Yvonne, and then some of the conservator, Frederica Waiting. So, and then I just got in love for the research that TEA was doing. And at that moment, I decided I want to work with this woman. That's how I started. So with my thesis on plastic, that was the first Italian thesis on plastic. And after that, there were some follow-up. But it was pretty much something because, where I studied was all old master, so Madonna and paintings. And I arrived with a polymethyl methacrylate giraffe and a Barbie, So it was something.
Must be crazy for your teachers in that time.
Yeah, I think we all love it. And I started to do research and working with my professor, the conservator, and the scientists as well. And that's what I started to get in love also with research. Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell us why and when did you decide to go to the Getty Institute? And are you working more as a conservator or as a researcher now?
I'm a conservator doing research.
Okay.
But still I remain a conservator. But I work in the science department indeed, which is pretty peculiar thing. And I did this also in the Netherlands as well for many years. And so I'm basically do two main things at the Getty. So I work within in the science. So I'm a conservator working in team with scientists. And it's within the Modern and Contemporary Art Initiative and within the Preservation of Plastic Project, which is a long-term project dedicated to advance the knowledge in the conservation of plastics. Okay. And one thing that I do is leading some research projects, trying to investigate and develop treatment for plastics. And the other task that I have is to develop workshop on plastics together with another department of the GCI that is called collection. So this is our two main things. Yeah.
And do you have a big team working with you?
Yes. I work depending on, what the research goes on and which kind of analytical technique, then yes, the team can change. Okay. Moreover, especially in the last year, for the treatment study that we are doing, we are also collaborating with other partners that are external. And specifically, we are working together with the scientists also of the RC and with the University of Amsterdam and also with some museum. Generally, the process is the research and then apply the research in practice. So we are pretty much connected with the museum. They are the starting point and the end.
Okay. So, and speaking about plastics identification, I have a question for you. How can you identify the different types without chemical analysis? Which exterior characteristics should we look for?
Yeah, that's something that we are teaching during the course because we think that it's very important, of course, identification is to use analytical technique, but sometimes it's possible to recognize plastics, Sometimes can be one thing, but most of the time is combining different things, how you examine an object. So can be the chronology, when this object was made, because some plastic, maybe they were discovered later. So, okay. Make your range smaller. And then the appearance of your plastic, can you see some sign that can give you an indication of the date of the production, like a trade name, bakelite is indicating a specific plastic. Sometimes you can find a trade name of a patent number, or so this is what you can look at. Then you can look at within the appearance of the color. Is it color? Is it transparent? Oh, if it's transparent, not all the plastic are fully transparent or clear, let's say. So it's excluding again. And then there are fillers. Some filler, they are specifically used in combination with some plastics. Then you can look at technology, and then you can see some sign of technology, and some of the technology are used for the thermoplastic instead of the thermoset, and so on and so on. So looking at your object, and then of course sign of degradation, that's very important, because some degradation signs are very specific to the plastic, you know, like the crazing that you see in cellulose nitrate with this cuboidal shape is pretty much unique, let's say. So and then you have the sound. Some plastic, they can make the sounds, you can touch it, and some they have a particular you know, feel, and the smell as well, that can be more intense with degradation.
Yes, I remember some of those things.
We did it together, right? Yeah. Yes, yes.
And
but now I think
yeah, you can.
Oh, you froze.
Yeah, okay. You can continue.
Yes. Yes, now I hear you.
Okay.
No, I was saying that what we are having a lot of fun now during the workshop, because first we are, you know, let the conservator look in touching. First we do the theory, then they try to look at the plastic, and then we had the last workshop with their box, with just unknown things, and they have to try to make their own guess. And I have to say, they did a good job, you know.
It was funny.
Yes.
And what steps should a conservator take when working with a damaged plastic object from a museum collection? And what are the main actions to stop the progressive damage?
Yeah.
Very generally, of course.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. I mean, the first thing, unfortunately or not unfortunately, I mean, is to understand what plastic is it. And I'm not saying even the specific plastic, but a little bit, because if you understand what you have, then you can understand what's going on. Is this damage due to degradation, or it's a mechanical damage? Sometimes it's very easy to understand, sometimes, you know, and then if you understand what you have and what caused your damage, then you can understand how to conserve and how to preserve it. And particularly if you have to repair a damage, then you need to make a selection in the material that you use. The selection of the material can be determined by the type of damage, of course, you know, which kind of damage you have to address. It's a broken part, it's a loss. But then what you have to see, it's which kind of plastic do you have, you know, because it's a plastic, it's your plastic flexible, it's your plastic rigid, you know, and then you go to choose different materials. So looking at the properties of plastic, it's very important. And what is very important, especially because we use generally to conserve plastic, you know, also plastic, you know, our material are also polymer, what we generally use in conservation. So if you want to find something that it will be reversible, you have to think that most of the time the solvent that will remove your conservation material can also remove your original material. So you have to understand which plastic it is, and then to see its chemical resistance if you want to, for instance, use an adhesive solvent-based adhesive, and then you can understand which adhesive you can use if you want to use a solvent base, you know, based on that. So, and more or less, they're all affected by acetone, of course. I think we all know by now. But, you know, there are slightly difference in some of the plastics. Some are more sensitive to alcohols and some not, you know. So it's always good to check before. Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah.
What was the biggest challenge till now in your career? And what was the great discovery that you and your team did, if you are able to share it with us, of course?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is, I mean, there were so many, and every time, because it's, you know, what we are doing, it's always in a research phase, there is always a challenge and always something that you have to do. So I think when you succeed it, every time is an excited moment. I think we have a big list. And but at the moment, let's say that my research is focusing on repairing transparent plastic, and this is very, very challenging because it's not just that you have to, you know, fill a loss or adhere a broken part. Whatever you do, you see it. Mm-hmm. It's like us. So you have to restore not just the part itself, but you have to restore the transparency. And this is the challenge that we're dealing with. And it's like in glass, but it's more difficult because, again, the material that you can use for glass, you know, you can easily remove them because, you know, you can remove everything with acetone. And with plastic, we have the difficulties that I told you. And so refractive index is the key. Mm-hmm. I think the most exciting moment, it was, there were two. One, I was still at the RC. When there we start to look at that. And so I start to, you know, work with different refractive index. And we found the range that it was working. And then suddenly it was on polyester. And then suddenly the damage disappeared. And that it was really exciting. And then now it's, so what we are doing is developing the methods, you know, and surface damage. And I think we develop a very nice method to repair local damage like chip and scratches on polyester and polymethyl methacrylate. And so generally for this kind of damage is pretty much used to polish or to sand the material. But, you know, this is still removing original material and sometimes can cause even more stresses in the material, especially on polymethyl methacrylate, and can become more sensitive in future to the use of solvent. And is already pretty much a plastic which is pretty much sensitive to solvent. So what we develop is a method using actually tools, generally using conservation, that we just fill the damage. We just fill the damage within the damage, so we don't go on the original material. There is no need to sand. And of course, using material that match the refractive index and low viscosity so they can enter the damage is the key. So we found it. That was very exciting. Yeah.
And is it already published or not?
Yeah, it's already published. And we did it in 2 steps because we look at the repair of transparent object. So it's in general, we look at 2 plastic, unsaturated polyester and polymethyl methacrylate. But what we are trying to give through the research, it's also an approach, because you can apply how to choose the material to any other transparent plastic and any other plastic. And so we look at transparent object itself, and then we look also when polymethyl methacrylate is used to face mount photo, which is actually polymethyl methacrylate is used to, is attached to photograph. It's a new technique that is started in 1980s. And so it's not anymore framed with a glass. So there is a plastic, and the plastic is part of the object itself. So if you have a damage there, you know, it's, you cannot remove it like you do it with glass because it's glue. So you need to find a solution. And so we recently, we published on ICOM-CC in 2017, the one on filling scratches and chip on polymethyl methacrylate. And we recently published in the topics for photographic conservation, how to apply this technique on face-mounted photograph.
Okay, so this goes to my next question is, how can we be aware of what is being discovered and developed in plastics conservation? How can conservators keep track? Is there a group or a platform or a conference that you recommend?
Oh yeah, I mean, starting with the conference, there is my favorite conference, which is Future Talks, that is organized by, I'm sorry, I'm very bad with pronunciation and German is not my language. With Sammlung, the Design Museum in Munich, and is organized by Tim Berthold, which is the head of the conservation department, is wonderful team. And it's a biennial conference, and they start in 2009, I guess. And since then, I never missed one. And because it's really a conference for conservator, and so of course there are scientists. I'm not saying that the one for scientists are bad, but it's a very good combination. There are scientists sharing their research and a lot of conservators sharing their experience about treatment. So it's not also just research, and it's so important to share because, you know, I'm lucky that I can do research, but a lot of conservators, they're just dealing with treatment and they need to do something, you know? And so that's a very good occasion to, to get update, you know, on what's going on and to meet, you know, your other plastic fellows, I will say. And so that's my favorite. Although over the years there are more and more conferences on plastic, I think, and I could not join everything. Many are in Europe, so I can travel all the time. I think the last one, and I don't know if because of this coronavirus it was postponed. It was called Plastic in Peril, and I guess the University of Cambridge. It was supposed to be in March. And then was one in Lisbon as well. That is
last year.
Yeah, last year. So, I mean, the number is increasing. And Future Talk was just now in November. So this is related to conference. And of course, and a lot of research is also presenting on ICOM-CC. You know, the modern and contemporary art section, you know, since ever, they always have, since they started, they always have a group dedicated on that. And so there are most of the time many papers presented on plastics, and AIC as well. So they're presenting as well. So this is related to conference, I think. And then related to where you can find things online. So on starting what we are doing on our preservation of plastic web page, we made a page that is called Related Materials. And in the Related Materials, there are papers that as a Getty we are publishing. Then there are the main publication on plastics, you know, the main book that can be referenced, or conference proceeding that are, you know, related to plastics. And then we have another section that is called key websites. So there are, you know, we just put their website of project. There are, you know, key and we try to update it. We are just now in the next weeks going to update because we got a little bit late with something, and there are new projects going on.
Okay, that's wonderful, and there's a big group of plastic conservators here listening now, so I think they will all happy to hear about that. So
yeah, sorry, I think it's very important because I don't. So there is also the main group and platform. It's INCA, so the International Network of Conservation of Contemporary Art, and this is always in Severn, and I think it's the first platform. People start to share things on modern and contemporary art. They still remain a fundamental source. I think you all also used to to advertise this. And so we have also in the ICOM-CC group a Facebook page that we are using it, and subscribe to ICOM, you have a mailing list, and also the Condis list. You know, people are always sharing things there, and as IIC, and yes.
Okay, thank you for this.
Sorry if I forgot somebody or something.
So back to the questions. In your opinion, and based in your experience, what is the worst type of plastic according to its vulnerability, and you wouldn't like to have in a collection if you were able to decide?
So I think I'm going to twist a little bit your question and my answer, because I tell you why. So if I tell you a specific material, you know, I mean, I don't feel like saying to a museum to don't buy an object made with that material, because I think it's pretty much related always, you know, by the object itself. So for instance, we know that, of course, cellulose nitrate is one of the most, the vulnerable plastic, we know that, you know, but not always. I just got an object with me, for instance, and I have two and 3. So these are made of nitrate, but they are ivory imitation. And I can tell you that, I mean, so far we never seen, you know, the dramatic degradation that you see on the transparent one. So these objects are pretty stable.
Mm-hmm.
Depends, you know, so it's not just the plastic itself, it depends from the composition, it depends how the plastic is made, is manufactured, it depends from what is the history of the object itself, where it was conserved. Okay. So I cannot say, you know, to exclude something, but I can tell you the plastic that I think I had most trouble with, you know, that I think more research needs to be done. And for sure, still, we need to do more research on cellulose ester plastics. And we are, as you can see also on the website, we are going to do that. And then the very problematic one are also polyurethane, and particularly polyurethane foam ester, which is degrading by hydrolysis. And especially, and you know that because we wrote an article together, are the polyurethane flexible elastomers. Mm-hmm. Ether, the one degrading by light, and especially because they are degrading, you know, they are weeping and leaking when they are degrading. So I think there is research that needs to be done. We started with the RCA, and I think actually the RCA is supposed to do research on elastomers, because this is something that should be researched.
Okay, we have here one question from a student that how many years of specialization are necessary to understand a little about plastics? And do you think you already know everything about them? I think the answer is no.
No, of course not. I mean, and the only thing that actually is the curiosity that keeps us alive, you know, if you stop and you think that you know everything, then you're done, you know, it's boring. So no, of course, and as any training, you know, I think for every discipline, I remember even when I study paintings, you go out and you think like, oh my God, I don't know everything. Of course, you cannot know everything, you know, type of pens are many, type of woods are many, type of plastic are many. What is important that, you know, training course, I mean, university of a conservation institute has to do is just to teach the approach, how you can approach this material, you know, to safely and successfully treat it, conserve it or preserve it. So this is key. And I can tell because I teach at the University of Amsterdam, and there 1 year, it's a dedicated course of modern and contemporary art, and 1 year is dedicated for plastic. And I see our students now, they're working in the field. So I think in that case, of course, more it is and better it is, but that was enough. And you always have, you know, to keep doing course and to keep studying every time. Yeah, that's what I think.
And what are the biggest challenge that they will face when studying, and what they must be aware of?
There are a lot of challenges. That's what they should be aware of this first. And that's fun, actually. I think, I don't know, I actually moved from painting to plastic. I mean, there are still a lot of challenge in painting as well, but it was because of that, because then, you know, it's nice to understand how can you deal with something and find your way. And so there are many challenges, but again, if you understand what is the right approach, how you can select the material, everything can be solved. Mm-hmm. Or not. But I mean, we try. It's nice to try.
Okay, it's good that you said that, because this question is for that. Are you and your team prepared to restore a plastic artwork till its original appearance? Is it possible? Or consolidation is still the maximum that conservators can go on plastic conservation?
I mean, I don't know if I'm covering very well the question. I mean, we try to bring the appearance back, you know, the original appearance back, but of course there is a limit, like really in any other material. Sometimes I think it's not that because it's modern and contemporary art, we should have something that it looks always new. also, you know, so I know, for instance, people try to don't have yellow plastic, you know, because yellowing is not nice. But then, you know, if you get back that things that you have a white one, it's also difficult to understand, to date your object. I mean, that object is from that period. So I think it's always the same balance. You should always try to restore the maximum that you can do, respecting the original material, even if we are speaking about modern material. But I'm very old-fashioned Italian conservator to say. I'm like that.
So, and if you have a complex object made of different types of plastics and with different types of degradation, could you conserve it? Should you replace some parts and leave the others? What should you do?
Yeah, I mean, let's say, because it's a very abstract things, but let's say that it happened to me to replace something, but it was a very last stage. So it was a foam, it was a padding foam in an object, and it was totally powder. So I could not really consolidate anything. So let's say that because really for me, still replacing, it's a difficult moment, you know, to remove what remain of the original material. So I do it really if there is nothing that I can try it for, but I always try to do what I can to restore. Let's say that I'm really, really for restoration, conservation, and treatments. Yeah.
Okay, and there's a question here. It's about the removal of an object from an exhibition due to the bad conditions. Should we do it with a replica made from a 3D printer, for example, and keep the original artwork in a stable conditions in storage?
I'm laughing because, and I think that is laughing too, I see it. Because it's not about replacing. If something is wrong and you cannot have, you know, a good environment in your exhibition space, I'm fine. The idea, I think in some museum, they decided, or because of the very bad condition of your object, to have a replica instead. To have a replica made with 3D technology, I don't know, because I don't know how much it will be stable. We are still looking at that.
Yeah. It's still plastic.
Already. Yeah, exactly. And we did also in our case, we were exploring 3D technology to fill losses, you know, to compensate losses. And so we test some of the material that they offer. You know, they just gave us a piece to fill our loss. And I mean, some they are unstable, so they age pretty quickly. So you have to see then if you don't have a constant problem replacing with something which is also degraded. Yeah.
And if you had the opportunity to find an answer for a big question related to plastics conservation, which should it be?
The things that we are researching the next, that is stabilizing and consolidating cellulose ester, in particular nitrate. And then I hope, I mean, the RCA or somebody else is, and I hope the RCA is researching the elastomer, you know, more researching, you know, what we've dealt with, you know, the flexible polyurethane elastomers. Yeah.
Okay. And is there any treatment or material that could be used in all types of plastics, or that's not possible?
No.
Like a magical adhesive.
I mean, it's again, I'm sorry, I'm always referring to the other discipline because I think we always have to relate it with that. I mean, if you think, I go to glass because it's the one closest of what I'm doing now, you know, different type of glass can have different type of refractive index. So you cannot have one material for all. You always have to choose, and the same for paint and the same for wood. And for plastic, we have more variety. So you cannot use, again, going to adhesive, for instance, a rigid adhesive to repair something that is flexible. So whoever has to look at the properties, this is mean that you always have a big range of material that you have to pick, looking at the properties and of the material. So this is I think it's, yeah, it's important. There is no one material. There are many, but what we are trying to do is at least to exclude the very bad one during research. This is not so.
Okay.
Making the range of the option a little bit smaller, hopefully.
So one last question, because we are running out of time. And
really?
I know it's not part of your research, but could you give any advice for storage? What could be done with short resources in a museum?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what is very important, you know, is just to keep the environment as much as stable as possible. And we generally have, and I think still, you know, for preventing conservation, still, I think a little bit more research should be done in plastic in general, but we generally give, you know, some standard, like keeping the temperature, if you can, between 80 and 20, the relative humidity in general, I'm speaking about all objects, to have it at 50%. And then, of course, if you are in a storage, try to avoid light, of course, because light photooxidation is one of the main reasons. Degradation of many plastic, not all of them, but many. So keep it in the dark. And then so there are some plastic, you know, that they have plasticizer that can migrate on their surface, like PVC, cellulose acetate, or nitrate. So in that case, if you know that your environment can be dusty over time, to avoid then a deeper cleaning, maybe you can think to cover it. And good material are Tyvek, which is based on polyethylene, or Melinex, silicone Melinex, that putting the silicone layer, then this is that your material will not attach. So this is a good cover. If you need to support polyethylene foam, and then maybe cover it Etafoam, cover it maybe also with Tyvek. And the first thing, a very important thing, this is starting, if you think that you have plastic that can have acid emission, then you should do first a check. That's the first thing. And we found that to check the presence of, you know, of gassing acetate and nitrate. And I mean, there are several methods. You can look at all of them on the guidelines.
Oh, yeah, I have to interrupt you because we don't have any time. I just want to say,
wow, it went like that.
Please turn on your cameras so we can all see you. Thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ana, for this wonderful talk. And just to say that next week we will have another 2 talks, one in Portuguese with the Portuguese teacher Ana Bailão, and one in English next Friday with Ruth, that is also here. And we will give the information next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, Marta, for organizing. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Thanks.